On this Tuesday night, back from the brink, Kharkiv, Ukraine rebounds.
It feels like things are returning to the way they were before.
A Kyiv kitchen's heartwarming recipe to feed the recovery.
If you worry about someone, at first you want to feed them.
And Canada's latest commitment for military aid. Restoring power to storm-ravaged Ontario and Quebec, plus the cleanup.
One of the trucks is folded in half.
Criticism in Kamloops.
Was this just a photo op?
Pushback to the Prime Minister's visit. And a lauded Canadian author fired up. Why Margaret Atwood is taking a flamethrower to one of her books.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Chris Galis.
Good evening and thanks very much for joining us. We begin tonight with breaking developments in another heartbreaking mass shooting in the U.S. At least 18 children and a teacher are dead after a shooting at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, a small city west of San Antonio. Jackson Proskow joins us now with the latest. Jackson?
Chris, this is an unspeakable tragedy. The students were in the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. That puts them between the ages of 7 and 10 years old. The 18-year-old suspect was killed on the scene, we believe, by police officers and may have had at least 2 guns in his possession. We know that he is believed to have shot his own grandmother before attacking the school today, just after 1 p.m. local time, but a motive remains unknown tonight. The news came from the governor of Texas earlier this evening.
What happened in Uvalde is a horrific tragedy that cannot be tolerated in the state of Texas. And there is swift action being taken by local law enforcement as well as the Texas Department of Public Safety.
Governor Abbott talks about action there, Jackson, but we are 10 years past the Sandy Hook Elementary School massacre. Nothing changed after that. Is there any reason to hope that American lawmakers will tackle gun violence this time?
It's hard to believe that they will change their attitude here, Chris. If nothing changed after Sandy Hook, why would anything change now? Here we are with the second horrific mass shooting in a week's time in this country. And while lawmakers and average Americans say they're furious, it's hard to believe that things will change. But we could find out more proposals tonight from President Joe Biden. He's set to speak shortly.
All right, we'll see what the president says. Jackson Proskow in Washington. Thank you, Jackson. Exactly 3 months ago, Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered an invasion of Ukraine. In the weeks since, Canada has helped Ukraine both financially and with artillery. Today, Defense Minister Anita Anand announced the federal government is sending more weapons.
I can confirm that Canada has purchased over 20,000 rounds of 155 millimeter artillery, which is NATO's standard artillery caliber. This package will also include fuses and charge bags at a cost of up to $98 million.
Anand says the shipment is in response to specific aid requests from Ukraine, and work is underway to make sure the troops get the weapons as soon as possible. Now, Russian forces have launched an all-out assault in the south, working to seize parts of the Donbass region. But Ukrainian troops have pushed Russia out of Kharkiv, where residents have been bombarded for weeks. With the city's metro reopening today, there's finally some optimism about a return to normalcy. Our Jeff Semple is in Kharkiv tonight and joins us now with more. Jeff.
Chris, when we visited Kharkiv back in March, Ukraine's second largest city appeared on the brink of falling to the Russians. But today, we saw a much different reality.
During the first weeks of war, families sheltered underground, huddled together in subway stations to avoid the bombing above. But 2 months later, their lives are slowly getting back on track. Subway service in Kharkiv resumed Tuesday for the first time since Russia's invasion, and commuters were on board. It's excellent. It feels like things are returning to the way they were before, this passenger says. The mayor of Kharkiv, whom we met 2 months ago in a secret bomb shelter, appeared this time in public and told reporters we need to restart the economy. People must be able to get to work. This Russian-speaking city sits on Russia's doorstep, just 40 kilometers away. But Ukraine has pushed Russian forces back almost to the border, and it seems some left in a hurry. This was a Russian tank, that is, until it was captured by the Ukrainian forces in a battle with the Russians in Kharkiv last month. And the Ukrainians brought it here to this secret location so that Ukrainian soldiers can train and learn how to use it.
So this is a look inside. They say it's similar in many ways, but it's a newer model and it's much faster. So they have to learn how to handle it. They say this thing can go up to 100 kilometers an hour. In fact, they've nicknamed it the flying tank.
In 3 months, the Ukrainians have captured more than 240 Russian tanks. They say they even used this one to attack a Russian battalion and kill its commander. Our enemy has gone from attacking to defending, this Ukrainian sergeant says. Our spies say the Russians are demoralized. But while the city hopes the worst is over, the scars of war are brutal. This family survived the bombing of their apartment building and came to inspect their son's kindergarten across the street. They found his school playground full of fragments from Russian rockets. Russia says it's attacking military targets, but this is a quiet neighborhood with schools and houses, she says. The family called the Ordnance Disposal Unit to remove this Grad rocket from beneath the play structure. This team has their hands full. The rockets are everywhere, he says. In the span of just a couple of hours, his unit was called to remove ordnance from this apartment kitchen, a nearby parking lot, and yet another kindergarten playground. I'm angry, says the father of a 1-year-old. I want to kill the people who did this with my bare hands. Officials say about a third of all apartment buildings in Kharkiv have been damaged or destroyed, and they've also updated the death toll. More than 700 people killed, including at least 36 children. Chris?
Jeff Semple in Kharkiv, Ukraine. Thank you, Jeff. Russia's jailed opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, labeled Vladimir Putin a madman today. Navalny made the comment in court while appealing a 9-year prison sentence for fraud, saying the Russian president started a, quote, stupid war in Ukraine. His appeal failed, and Russian media is reporting Navalny will now be sent to a high-security prison. Alexei Navalny was arrested February 2021 after returning to Russia from Germany, where he was recovering from a near-fatal nerve agent attack. Navalny blames Putin and his security services. Days after a deadly storm tore through southern Ontario and Quebec, killing 10 people, devastated communities are still cleaning up. And late today, storm watchers at Western University say it was, in fact, an EF2 tornado with wind speeds up to 195 kilometers an hour that struck Uxbridge, Ontario on Saturday. As Mike Drolet reports tonight, hundreds of thousands of people remain without power.
Call it progress. However slow it seems, hydro crews, bolstered by hundreds of workers from the U.S., are getting Ontario's power grid up and running.
It's really the degree of the devastation that's occurred. It's very complex.
Complex to the tune of 1,400 hydro poles and 1,000 kilometers of power lines to replace, spread out over virtually the entire southern part of the province. 150,000 homes remain without power, and another 100,000 in Quebec. And that's led to long lines at gas stations, provided they're open at all. Demand is so high, many have run dry.
They came down right onto all of the vehicles.
Nick McKay, for one, doesn't expect to get power back anytime soon. The massive trees in the Pine Glen neighborhood of Ottawa, where he lives, were no match for the 120 kilometer per hour winds, nor were the cars now smashed in his driveway.
One of the trucks is folded in half. The little car is completely flat, and the Jeep has sustained a lot of damage on the front. There's a tree sitting on the hood.
The storm is being called one of the most destructive in Ontario's history. It cut through the most populous part of the country with near tornado-strength winds, and it moved so quickly there was little warning, as thrill seekers at Canada's Wonderland found out.
They're just stuck there!
Video posted on TikTok showed people stuck on the massive behemoth roller coaster for half an hour as the storm passed through. It's a storm that knocked the top off silos and left the Eder farm in disarray.
So this pile that used to be a machine shed and also a mobile home that was on the property.
But those can be rebuilt. Their family, including a herd of dairy cows, are alive and well, which they attribute in part to luck.
On the Mother Nature side, I mean, that's when you realize like there's nothing we could have done except, hide in the basement or in a safe space.
Mike Drolet, Global News, Toronto.
In eastern Manitoba, spring flooding in Whiteshell Provincial Park is getting worse. Residents and emergency crews are scrambling to reinforce ring dikes and fill sandbags to save homes, cottages, and businesses before it's too late.
There's so much water out there, it's overwhelming. It's affecting many more Manitobans at the same time than maybe it has in the past.
Manitoba Premier Heather Stefanson surveyed the spring flooding today, taking an aerial tour with senior government officials. She says the area near the Ontario border is completely surrounded by rising floodwater. A mandatory evacuation order for the northern part of Whiteshell Provincial Park is being expanded tonight. Quebec's National Assembly passed Bill 96 late today, controversial language legislation to protect and promote the French language by limiting the use of English, access to English services, and education courses. Dan Spector is in Montreal tonight, and Dan, Quebec's Premier François Legault says this is all about the survival of French culture.
Chris, after months of fiery debate that divided the province, Bill 96 has passed with a 78-29 vote at the National Assembly to thunderous applause. Like you said, Premier François Legault saying it is his duty to protect the French language lest it disappear in a sea of English in North America. There have been multiple concerns from rights groups, from Anglophone groups, and from the federal government about this law's potential to infringe on people's rights. There are concerns about access to education, access to the justice system, access to medicine in people's mother tongue language if it is a language other than French. I'll let you take a listen to François Legault's message to Anglophones.
They have to understand that it's a question of survival. If we don't take action to protect French, it's a matter of time. Quebec becomes a bilingual state. It's a matter of time before we lose the presence of French in Quebec.
There are expected to be legal challenges, but the bill is protected by the notwithstanding clause. It's baked right into Bill 96, so that shields it from challenges based on the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. But legal experts say they will chip away at certain provisions, but it could be before the courts for years. Chris.
No doubt. All right. Thank you, Dan. That's Dan Spector in Montreal. Security experts sound the alarm. Coming up, why they say Canada is not ready for the security threats we're facing. A blue-chip panel of national security experts released a stark warning today that Canada is simply not prepared to deal with a world of growing and complex security threats, including from our closest ally. Our chief political correspondent, David Aiken, joins us. And David, it sounds like we need a complete security overhaul here.
And Chris, this is not just any group of experts. This group includes 4 former national security advisors to Prime Ministers Trudeau and Harper, plus 2 former directors of CSIS. In other words, this group has had access to the most secret and the best intelligence for Canada and its allies.
We are now in a security environment that poses a number of dangers for the West, including Canada.
Whether it's economic espionage, foreign interference in domestic politics, or cyber attacks, Canada's security agencies and armed forces are not well prepared to deal with emerging threats.
We're not saying that Armageddon is around the corner, but you connect a lot of these threats, you put them together. It's a dangerous world. Canada, I think, not just its governments, but its people writ large, have not always taken national security seriously.
And Canada's traditional allies may not be the reliable bulwark they once were. Take the United States, for example. Last year's January the 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol not only threatened American democracy, but the forces behind that attack are also seen as a threat to Canada's democracy.
We also have to increasingly come to think as the U.S. as not only the greatest source of our prosperity and security, but also a source of insecurity. We see it, for example, with growing transnational ties between right-wing extremists in Canada and in the U.S.
The Prime Minister says he agrees with the diagnosis.
We're working closely with our national security agencies, working closely with organizations like the Canadian Security Establishment around communications to make sure that we are able to respond to these new realities.
But the experts say that the government needs to do more before there's a crisis on Canadian soil. A good place to start, they say, a new national security review. The last one was done in 2004. Chris.
David Aiken in Ottawa. Thank you, David. The pen is mightier than the flamethrower. Ahead, why one of Canada's greatest novels is now fireproof. Canadian literary legend Margaret Atwood has armed herself with a flamethrower to protest censorship. The 82-year-old is promoting the one-off auction of a fully fire-resistant copy of her novel, The Handmaid's Tale. Atwood and publisher Penguin House say the version was made in response to what they call the challenging, the banning, and even burning of hundreds of books across the U.S. The Prime Minister is in BC visiting the Tecumlipse-Teshwetmik First Nation as it marks 1 year since it confirmed 215 unmarked presumed graves at a former residential school. Trudeau met elders and leaders in the community, but not everyone was happy to see him. Neetu Garcha explains.
Canada is all Indian land.
For many, the Prime Minister's arrival here Monday was a surprise. He arrived to a day-long memorial event marking 1 year since more than 200 unmarked burials were found near the former Kamloops Indian Residential School around 4:30 p.m. to a mixed reaction. There were many supporters, but others didn't want him present.
This is about our elders and our survivors.
Those who are still filled with hurt and anger, I hear that as well.
Prime Minister Trudeau fell short of making any concrete commitments, a sign of his honest intent to focus on survivors, say some. But to leaders like Grand Chief Stuart Phillip, who wants funding for more ground-penetrating radar searches, it was a performative approach.
There needs to be a significant investment in this work. And, we expect the Prime Minister to acknowledge that and understand that.
And I heard some of the survivors saying that, what did he really say? Was this just a photo op?
Trudeau vowed to partner with the community in its next steps, and he addressed the anger.
What so many people have been through in terms of layers of trauma that they've gone through. If it makes anyone feel a little bit better to shout at me, then please, they should.
Cookpee Roseanne Casimir focusing on the importance of moving beyond blame and working together, something Amanda Big Sorrelhorse agrees with.
I appreciate what he did say, and hopefully that he will have support to move forward in a more positive and impactful way for all of us, not just us as Indigenous and Native people, but for all Canadians. This is Canadian history.
Last year, Prime Minister Trudeau faced criticism for vacationing on Vancouver Island instead of coming here for the country's first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And while he didn't provide specifics on previous promises like a local healing centre for Tecumlipse-Teshwetmik, he did say the federal government will support whatever path forward communities like this one decide is right for them. Chris?
All right, thanks very much. Neetu Garcha reporting in Kamloops. And a reminder, there is support available for survivors of residential schools and their families. The number is toll-free, operates 24 hours a day. It is 1-800-721-0066. Soul food coming up next. How traumatized Ukrainians are finding peace and friendship in the kitchen. For those who remain in Ukraine, life is seemingly under constant threat. But through that trauma, the kitchen is a place where people are finding food and friendship. Crystal Gumansing reports.
In this kitchen in Kyiv, food is love, and with every dish, comfort is served.
If you worry about someone, at first you want to feed them. That's care. That's how we care about our loved ones.
Everyone around this table agrees the war has made them family, and they've been cooking for about 10,000 extended relatives. Soldiers, people in hospital, neighborhood kids, anyone in need.
It's better than just sit at home and scroll news and do nothing.
Nothing good comes from passing time doom scrolling on social media. So in the days following February 24th, more than 24 cafe, restaurant owners, bakers, and workers decided to put their skills to use and get to work. They united to find kitchen space, food donations, and delivery drivers.
The main cool thing that we did, we connected people who were panicked, shocked, and they were in fear. And we make their life full of sense because they have a job, they can help, and they can see results very quickly.
Most of the team is under 35. Many left the capital when the city was under attack in the early days of the full invasion. Being away, however, made them feel disconnected and vulnerable.
When you are doing something good, when you're helping, maybe you are not realizing that first of all you're helping yourself, and then it's like in the airplane. You have to put on the mask on yourself first and then for the other people.
As Ukraine secures more of its territory, demand is beginning to drop. But Kyiv volunteers haven't stopped. They're still cooking, but also collecting and delivering humanitarian supplies too. Anything to support each other and their extended family. Crystal Gamanson, Global News, London.
And that is Global National for this Tuesday night. I'm Chris Galis. Thanks for watching. Tonight's Your Canada is Halifax's waterfront. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Hope you have a great evening.